Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. We put the link there, and
yeah.
uh, and
We're
we're
live.
live now. Yeah, let me see if I
Yeah, we
can
have
find
this.
my YouTube channel over here. Oh, there are people on the server. This
Good.
is interesting. Maybe I could show it. Should I show you? I'll show you who's
Of
hanging out
course.
in Minecraft. Let me just get it up here. Oh, let's see. Okay.
Share screen.
Anyway,
Share screen. I think.
yes, I'm going to share a screen to show you what's going on in Minecraft. Are you familiar with the dynamic maps in Minecraft?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me just share the screen. Uh, and yeah, these guys hang out in Minecraft. They're not too interested in hangouts, you know. Let me see if I can share that screen. Let's see, that's a window right there. Okay, share an application window. That's that map right there. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is our server. We
Yeah.
have uh, this guy Abu Fletcher. His real name is Don Carroll. And
Yeah.
oh, I can tell them here in the chat that we're in Hangout.
Yeah. Looking at them.
Yeah,
Watching them.
yeah. You can actually chat with people in Minecraft here, and
Yeah.
they'll get the message in Minecraft.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm just going to tell them. Okay, I'm just saying that we're in Hangout on Air with Alex Hayes now. If you want to join us.
Yep.
Geez, Butterfingers. Okay. So no telling, they might respond,
That's it.
and if not, they'll continue playing. Okay,
That's
let me
it.
go. So anyway, basically, this is our spawn area on our server, and Matty is Jane Xian's young son. They're from
Yeah.
Taiwan, and she's being mentored in Minecraft. They live in Florida now because she's a professor.
Oh.
And Abu Fletcher is probably back at the spawn point to get supplies, and he's been expanding the map. So as we travel in this world, the map gets expanded, and
Yeah.
his specialty is finding underwater temples and trying to get into the underwater temples, which is a real community effort because you need a lot of people to figure it out. And there's a guy over here
Yeah.
named Mircea Patrascu. He's out in it looks like he's making a water voyage or something, or he's on an island. No telling what he's discovered there. So, but you can see as I'm following this map out that people have been just going on some extreme voyages. And this is our
Yeah.
fourth year in this server. So
Wow.
we have on this server other areas like over here. This is our, oh, there we go. I think that's our one of our years from a
Expanded.
different year. Actually, that's not what I thought it was, but it doesn't matter. You can see on the map where we've set spawn points for different years. But anyway,
Yeah.
Alex,
Yeah.
we're here to talk about you. Let me unshare this so that I can get back. And screen share is now off, I hope. Okay, there's me. Okay.
It is. Yeah. There's you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
anyhow, we'll make them listen to the
Yeah.
recording.
We can't make anybody do anything, but we can try and encourage them to.
Yes, of course. Okay, well, I'm Vance Stevens. I'm in Al Ain, United Arab Emirates, and I was just checking out what was going on in Minecraft. And the people there are probably having too much fun to come and join us live. Um, when we were as we've been doing these sessions, 4 years ago we started, and we used to have presentations, and we used to try to tutor people in Minecraft. But now people just go on the server. It's just an incredible experience. It's all experiential now. And we haven't really had any talking head presentations yet, but it's something that I like to do, especially with Alex. Um, maybe I could do another screen share here just to show you. I'm just going to show you where we are in. Let's see if I can go. I guess I'll go back to that browser window and switch over to.
Hi.
Oh, there we go. Who's there?
Olive, Maha.
Ah, Maha, how are you? Good. Did you get my message in Minecraft?
Yeah, yes. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Hi, Alex.
Well, this is...
Hello there, Maha. How are you going?
This is Alex. This is his slideshow we're going to see in a minute. And this is an announcement about it. This is a... Can you see this, Alex? Is it scrolling okay?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay. This is a way to memorize long numbers by using a method where you imagine what you're doing. I suppose Minecraft could have something that you could build things that would help you memorize. He has in this slideshow or at his blog all these links we're going to look at with very interesting links. I had to look through them. This is who we're talking to, Alex, Alexander Malgai Hayes. And this is about some of his work. And this is the last time I talked to Alex, was in August 14th, 2016. And he explained his, he explained in about an hour and a quarter, I suppose, his thesis, his PhD thesis, called at the time the null hypothesis on country, cyborgs, and the singularity. He brought all those concepts neatly together in a, I wouldn't say rambling, but a very directed, but wide-ranging discussion of what he's doing. And Minecraft appears to be something that, well, it does fit in because a lot of that was about wearable technology. We'll see wearable holograms in a minute. And, well, just basically, we should let Alex take his own show. This is the event, it was a Learning Together event. It was episode 341. We're doing episode 382 right now, Learning Together. And without much further ado, let me turn you over to Alex here, Alexander. And Mircea Patrascu has joined us. If anybody wants to say anything to us, we heard from Maha a minute ago. Mircea, if you'd like to say hi.
Hello.
Okay. We're getting a bit of a hiss from somewhere. I wonder where that could be. If I mute someone, I think
it's Maha. Yeah. So,
might be. Okay. She's muted. Yeah, very good. Okay, she muted herself. Okay.
Feedback.
Yeah. All right. So Maha, if you want to say something, feel free. It's just that there's hissing coming from your microphone, so just unmute yourself and you can talk anytime you want. Alex he's cool about that. So it's pouring down rain where Alex is. He's in Broome, Australia, over in the west. And Alex, take it from here. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Vance, very much. And as people can see in the right-hand side of the window, if you're in Google Hangouts, there's a chat window. So please feel free to put some chat messages in there. If you'd like to ask a question, it's easier to type it, and then I can address that question as we go. And hello to Joe Kay, who's turned up in Google Hangouts as well. Joe Kay is a long-time colleague. And hello to those people who I don't know, which is fantastic because I can connect with you and we can share and explore where perhaps some of the areas that I've come into this. I'm going to try and share a screen share here. If you can, please, Vance, let me know that you're seeing everything okay. And I'm going to go, where are we going to go? We're going to format, view, present. And the reason I'm presenting these in this way, which is going backwards in time a little, just as screenshots, is that they kind of link across to a conversation and a reflection in time. I could have done this whole thing in Minecraft, of course. We could have done it as window, window, and window, you know, instead of regressing back into Google Hangouts on. But I thought it would be fun to go this way, and I've prepared some notes, and then I'd really like to engage in a conversation as soon as I can get these slides kind of out the way. So Vance, I can't see you, but you might be able to see me.
Can I say to the audience, while listening, can you mute your mic, as Maha has done, and then we don't get any background noise while he's talking. And you're welcome to even say hi now if you want, or you're welcome to speak anytime you want. At that time, unmute your mic, and then you can talk to us. I'm going to set an example.
Thanks, Vance. Is my slides there showing? Is the Evo slide showing me?
They are great.
Again. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. I'm going to click on your. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks, Vance. You know, the facilitator of this. As I can see, it's a part of a MOOC, and contributing towards the discussion, but mainly listening on what you guys are currently up to. I think it's really important for me to better understand what it is and what you're being challenged by through that whole picture. Really, what I'd like to do, I think it's important for me to recap, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So you have to be patient, because really what I'm looking at within the nature of my research, particularly within the wearable technology space, is around the perceived and actual benefits, risks, and harm of these technologies. And Minecraft fits in very neatly in that picture, and I'll show you why. I have, for a long period of time, been involved with, it seems, when I say long, I say it's close to 18 years in total. But there I am with Joe Kay and a number of other people within Second Life, interacting with people in a live audience, and we were watching a live program through Second Life going back in 2006. So we're now at what? 2018. So the image you're seeing there of us using Second Life was back in 2006. Between 2006 and 2011, we've progressed a long way through MMORPGs, and particularly within this whole realm of educational design worldwide. And so I've interacted and communicated with literally hundreds or maybe even thousands of people in a virtual context for such a long period of time. Like Vance, I don't think we've ever met physically, have we, Vance?
Never have.
It's muted there.
Many times virtually.
Many times virtually, but we've never actually interacted in a physical domain. And so this journey began of the virtual domain for me back in 1995 or 2018. So just think, if we think about that in that context, an educational context as well, particularly with young people, they will never have ever experienced the internet not being there, and they will have had very limited experience other than a virtual landscape with some people in their life. For older people such as ourselves, we find that still intriguing, and I still do. But I think what I do need to do is sort of speak to some of the things that I've been involved in. So at night, predominantly between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m., in the mornings between 2007 and 2009, I recall, because on my Xbox counter, I spent 1,180 hours playing Halo 2. And that was followed by me playing Halo 3. And I must have killed trillions and trillions of big bad creatures. And really what it was all about at that time for me was interacting in a landscape, not necessarily interacting with people or humans in a way that was around collaborative gaming. They very much were around a single player, single shooter, gamer console experience. For me, that I spent a lot of period of time doing that. I was immersed very much in that space, and that was followed soon after in 2009 to 2011 by I lost count basically of the amount of hours that I spent in the World of Warcraft platform, and it showed. By 2012, I weighed 119 kilograms. I had circulation issues in my legs. I had difficulties getting into my own vehicle. I had I developed severe iritis in my eyes. I was hospitalized, which resulted in a 25% loss of acute vision in my left eye. So essentially, I spent so much time online that I spent very little time in my physical realm interacting with people. And I think that's, I believe that a lot of people have also, or know of people who have become that avidly involved in online platforms that they have in some way experienced a disconnect with their physical reality around them. And that's what sort of led, I suppose, into my research. And between 2009 and 2011, I also spent countless hours, not only in World of Warcraft, but also in the beginnings of the very rudimentary forms of Minecraft. And I was inspired by the likes of Joe Kay, who I believe is online. If you're there, Joe, I'd really appreciate it. Step up and say hello there. Who's an amazing education. Hey! It's great to hear your voice, Joe. How are you going?
I'm good. It's good to hear your voice too, Alex.
Yeah, so we're sort of predominantly connected virtually through Facebook on a sort of a different learning curve, haven't we?
Have you guys ever met?
Lately it's Facebook, but I think it's been lots of different platforms over the years, hasn't it, as things have evolved and changed.
They have. And look what I've got. Oh, I can't show you, but I've got a book in front of me here called The Future of Learning in a Networked World, 2006.
No.
And, so Joe and I travelled to New Zealand, and we met with quite a number of other amazing and inspirational educational designers, leaders of all different descriptions, and who design corners of the internet, in fact, design whole segments of the internet, particularly around educational learning design. So, Joe, can you just, I'd really like to, while we have the slide up, can you give us a bit of an idea what your amazing Minecraft community is for kids, please?
Yeah, sure. I think people in Evo hear me talk about it a lot when we're in game and stuff. I say, oh, yeah, we do this on our server. But basically, massively is, part of a long line of virtual spaces that I've worked in over the years. But it's the one that I have to admit I love the most, and the one where I see the most deep engagement with kids. So we started playing with Minecraft just as part of, the progression from Second Life to OpenSim to World of Warcraft. And what we saw was this huge engagement with the kids, which were basically the children of the adults that were checking out this new technology, were kind of engaged in. We recognized we really needed to, set something up and start to experiment. So we started off with just kids that were, my friends' kids playing on the server. So it was about 20 people. That was back in 2010. And very quickly we recognized that this was going to be an amazing space for kids to engage in informal learning. So we're not a school, and we're not set up with a formal structure. There isn't lessons, but what there is a community charter and a whole series of challenges that we invite the kids to take part in. So from those early days, we've grown to about 1,800 kids have or are playing with us at Massively. They start at age 4, and we allow people to join until they're 16. Once they turn 16, I don't kick them out, because we are a community and we care about each other. So some of the earliest kids from Massively are actually starting university last year and this year, and several of them are playing games. We have lots of homeschooled kids. Predominantly the kids come from Australia, the UK, the US. We have a few from France, a couple from Malaysia. There's an interesting mix. But basically what the kids do is they come into the server and they do whatever they want. So they build all sorts of different creations. They play together. We use Discord just like we do in Evo. But what I've done is built a structure that it challenges them to undertake activities that have a focus around ISTE's digital learning goals. So most educators who work with K to 12 and even through K to 20 will know about ISTE's learning goals, digital learning goals. And they're all about digital citizenship and safety online and the ability to use, online tools. So I hope that I'm growing little digital citizens in Minecraft. So we're not just playing a game, we're actually learning how to live online and including what Alex mentioned before about how we manage our time online and our health in terms of our obsessions with games. And I'll admit I have an obsession with gaming for sure. But yeah, so it's, it's all about that kind of bigger picture of not only learning online in terms of the types of learning we would have kids doing in school, but that, that broader, more flexible lifelong learning. So it's kind of a bit of a vague idea of what we're up to. And hopefully there'll be time during your vote for you to come and visit us at some point.
Absolutely.
You gave us a presentation and talked about it is recorded, so I can post that link somewhere. But you told us we visited you in World last year, I think, and
yeah, that's right.
That was a useful presentation. So I'll make that. I'll pull that out and put a link somewhere.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that, Joe. And on that lifelong learning sort of journey track, it was kind of cool, but it was kind of frightening too by 2011 or 2009 because some people will know, I went off on a tangent and started looking at not only the virtual but also the augmented or mediated and the mixed reality worlds of particularly where wearables sort of intersected into that space. And it really opened up a completely different area of thinking that for many people was perplexing in as much as it was a collision of ideas and spaces and a devolving or a rapidly changing way of engaging with people both physically and virtually. So not only were we starting to interact with each other virtually, we were starting to interact with each other as being the carrier of the internet. We had smartphones by this stage, and that's when things really shifted a great deal. So the picture there, that's a few of us at Mobilised this 2010. What I noted around about 2010 was the fact that X-Notch or Marcus person, who is a Swedish video programmer, he basically just was rocking out with this thing called Minecraft. Now, Mojang I'd actually investigated around a series of privacy breaches that their company had been accused of around about 2010. And it really, at that stage, was known to be a first-person sandbox video game. But I for me, it just seemed incredibly straightforward and basic. But Joe had a far better insight into the way that this was running. And it was so linked to MMORPG development that we started to think, okay, if it's going to have that amount of impact, and Joe was a leader in that space, we started to talk about it and looked at that fusion. And there's a photo of you, Vance, in there in the bottom right-hand corner. There's a photo of me in the left-hand corner there wearing a pair of some of the first pivot head glasses that there were. And we were all together, but we were also not only physically involved, we were also virtually involved, all of that this was 2013. So you can see that there was a fusion of everything all coming together at once. And it was incredibly deep and incredibly rich that we could bring people between virtual domains, not simply to be in one, but to be across many and concurrently. Cheers.
I was just going to say that Dennis Newson is in this picture, and Maha's recognized him. And he's just joined us in Minecraft, actually. I guess, has anybody seen him here? Maybe Maha was helping him the other day. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Has he actually been in our world yet? I know Carol Rainbow is here. Her picture is probably in Second Life somewhere. So yeah, this community is coming together, and it's interesting. We all know each other in these worlds and hang out on air and that sort of thing. But
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these legacy systems are, as I see it, a collaborative pedagogy, and that virtual domain collapsing in a mixed reality is really what I noted that developers were chasing, and they were the big ones. They weren't the small guys. They were the big ones. We saw Microsoft buy up Mojang. And so in 2013, while I was at the ISTAS 13 conference in Toronto in Canada, the gaming developers there and the virtual reality engineers were discussing that merger prior. And the interesting thing about how that's evolved, how Microsoft went with that, really, it was a bit like how Facebook went with Oculus Rift. It kind of marrying platforms and marrying devices, but also taking whole generations of people across and actually bringing the virtual domain off this static sit at your PC type of arrangement into a wearable and movable and interactable environment. And so that was moving away from this locked in a VR world across into this mixed realities fusion. And that's where I want to focus on kind of within this next couple of slides, really. Because what we see happen is Microsoft took over Mojang. They basically made 2.5 billion. I think they actually have now about 2.8 billion worth of profit, the company. That's the founders where Minecraft came out of. And these guys, as soon as Microsoft got involved, they basically stepped back and said, it's not essentially where we were heading with what we were doing, but we can't any further. We basically want to move into a different direction altogether. They left the company altogether. And then it was questions around why, and this thing came up. Basically, Microsoft said that one of the major reasons for acquiring Mojang and essentially where Minecraft was around HoloLens. Now, when we started this conversation tonight, where was Vance Stevens? He was in his HoloLens already. So we can see that there's already a huge shift to people who are averse to VR. Suddenly now it's on their head. And not only is it on their head, they're also bringing everything else into that space. And that's where the fusion is. That's where that mixed reality world is happening. And so from there, you've got, well, if you examine it, if you have a look at it, it's a pretty out there sort of device when you think about it. It's got multiple camera points, multiple sensors. It has a very wide field of view. It immerses the person not only in an augmented or virtual space, it's also org-mediated space. The person can interact still in some contexts within their own reality. It's not just an electronic reality. It's a reality of the world itself. So that's really mapping in the consumer cohort and bringing everything into the one space and then getting it on your head. So if we go forward, why would we want to fuse Minecraft with those mixed realities? Well, I can see a diverse marketplace happening. There's a lot of branded minds happening here, and there's a lot of, people have grown up with gamification and the creative, the incorporation of innovation. I just see that there's a lot of these larger corporations who are starting to collapse down the way that we not only interact, but also how we create. And that's my greatest worry. The greatest worry is about how, when we used to be incredibly diverse in what we used, we're now starting to use less and less as we find more and more things within what we already have, limited range of platforms and spaces. So I think that Microsoft's investment in Minecraft is a really, really clever consumer marketplace society they're growing. It's not, they've essentially, Microsoft has managed to defend out a lot of flack around data collection and data invasion, identity management, and there's just been, they've just sucked up and squashed a lot of those accusation trails of patent violations and copyright infringement that Mojang originally had. So Microsoft is the big player. It's got a lot of clout, and very cleverly they moved across into that space. What's happening now? Well, we've got more, of course. We've got developers such as Magic Leap coming into this space. Not only are they looking at virtual reality, they're looking at an augmented and a mixed reality, which is more or less like what Professor Steve Mann talks about as an org-mediated reality. One where you can keep interacting across everything you do. You don't necessarily need to take the things on and off. It's not necessarily known any longer as gamification. People aren't playing games. They're living in a new reality. And so Magic Leap says, states things like, we promise that you are going to have a deeper, grander, and a more rewarding than anything that you'll ever experience in reality. So what they're pitching is that what we have termed as reality is collapsing. For some people that seems to be purposefully manipulative. There's some ethical concerns around that. If you're stating that the reality that they pitch is going to be far more engaging than one without it, then we've got to be careful about that. I just think we've got to be careful. So mixed reality is really where we're at. I don't see a great deal of stuff really. I don't think there's going to be a great deal of movement any further, much really within the virtual reality nomenclature. I think that we really are in a mixed reality world. I think we are, as we were showing earlier, we've collapsed and collided and brought together many, many different platforms in different ways, and they've been a mixed reality. It's not just been one, and not just simply virtual. And I'll give you an example. Well, look at those houses. That's actually not Minecraft, but it could well be. These are houses that have been developed relatively recently in Canberra, where I used to live. They were developed using softwares that resemble the way of assembly, which we would use in Minecraft and have for a long period of time. They've been pushed into actual reality or into construction, architecture or construction. And unfortunately, they're one of the worst, worst forms of architecture for a cold climate, and proven so, but incredibly efficient in many other ways, particularly in terms of construction, the profit for some of the developers that got into that space. And then we're seeing some really clever use of this whole idea of spatial learning or spatial technologies, and that's from the AR kit, Apple AR kit. So the screenshot there of where you can see a fusion between Minecraft build and also within the physical build of the actual domain of that of the wearer, of the user, the Minecraft player. I haven't yet had my son rebuilding our home here because we've just been through a large, not a hurricane, would be a hurricane from the US, cyclone, which essentially demolished half the town here. And there are people there in reality trying to repair things, and not in any sense virtual whatsoever. But the whole idea there, I think that what I'm pitching there is that the people that I did work with in Toronto, Metavision, with Steve Mann and his crew, they pitched that spatial learning was here. Like this idea of spatial learning, this three-dimensionality or 4 dimensions. Well, I kind of figured that we were already there. There was nothing new about that. Spatial learning is we've always had spatial learning as individuals. We've always had a sense of the nature. We've always been encouraged, just meant not just reality. Spatial learning is opening out of potential for how things can be built architecturally, immersive, and really as that was coined at the time, this mixed reality hybris, an environment where people could live, interact, and design and rechange things, all as one, as a mixed reality. Much of the research I did do and have done within the industry area using technologies such as, you can see this BAM product here, is around engineering, construction and transport, refrigeration and air conditioning refrigeration, engineering particularly, where a whole range of prompts can be built. But you'll notice also there that there's a lot of crossover between the way that we interact within a virtual domain within Minecraft and what we do within reality. And that's what we're going to see more and more within our workplace, and what our children particularly are going to interact in is going to be a mixed reality where things are, because of the wearables that they are actually part of, gives them access and also changes the reality of what they're doing in a physical context. That has a great deal of ramifications around that too, because we're moving fast into a whole state of automation, artificial intelligences, which are in some cases replacing the way that whole industries actually work. That's got a lot of impact. So there are benefits, risks and harm, but I've never seen that we're actually going to be looking at or accessing, like emails through VR, that sort of stuff to me just seems like a poor representation as to where we're actually at. We never really wanted to be answering tweets basically through a scroll through the even though we can do it. And so what I focus more on is what are some of the benefits, risks and harm of digital gaming, personally and collectively. I really didn't want to be focusing on just the dystopia side of it. And I was really focused on the avid educational technologist and learning design realm of how can these things be useful for what we're doing, simply by looking at the benefits and then weighing up whether there were any risks or harm involved with that. And much of what I got involved in and understanding is that there simply is a lot within the socio-ethical space, and none more. And when we think of the virtual realities of platforms like Minecraft, and this definite drain of intellectual knowledge and also of identity management knowledge that the large corporations are tapping off the people who are users of that platform. They are gaining a fantastic insight into who you are, how you interact, and what your skills are. They get to directly actually access and use the information that they have on hand, irrespective of whether we believe we have private servers or not. Are still there and doing things that are bringing us across into a surveillance that most people, say, not me. Well, there's a lot of hype around this space. I've tried to stay away from the VR hype and very much interested in the augmented reality or mixed reality side of the space. There's been massive amounts of startups for VR that have gone nowhere. There's lots of promises of amazing sunrises that we should have been part of, and none more than the ones we could have stuck our head out the door and actually seen. So yeah, it's been a consideration space and a reality for me as well to check out. And one of them really is as a personal level, because as you know, or some people know here, I've got 5 children, and my stepdaughter plus 4 other children, and they've spent massive amounts of time in Minecraft. And I'm assured, always that it's there are private worlds and realms in there that you can, they're accessible. Only certain people can invite and get in there, and they're private. Well, that opens up the notions of what privacy means. In this day and age, when we talk with engineers, particularly around these domains, privacy is akin to transparency. Transparency means you've got nothing to hide. So therefore, everything that the data that's on the server is provided for whomever needs it, particularly in judicial purpose. So we've got to be very careful about looking into the ethical constraints that these large corporations are rarely abiding by. they're taking a lot of data. They are associating data, and they do sell that data to highest bidders too. They do. It's well proven. And the nature of these games, and that's been the focus of my research, is around power, it's around privacy, and it's around perception. And recently, which is just almost an unbelievable advent, is that in the UK particularly, teachers, educators, are now not only not just encouraged, but it's becoming mandatorial to wear a surveillance camera that's chest mounted in the classroom settings, physical classroom settings. So not only are the children being surveilled and they're in a virtual environment, but they're also being surveilled in a physical environment. And the data is, again, going back to corporations such as Microsoft, through evidence.com and other providers. So there is a kind of a collusion and collision between the nature of surveillance and also the nature of data valence, the nature of how data is collected, what people use it and do with it. But for most people, the main danger they see is that they're losing their kids. I've unfortunately been in this circumstance, not necessarily writing letters about how I deleted Minecraft. I've never done that with my sons, but I certainly have experienced and thought about the many ways that my children have changed in their behaviours over the last 5 years particularly, but most importantly in the last 2, with some amazing work that they're doing in Minecraft, but their social interaction as a family unit and also with others has deteriorated markedly. And I'm also hearing of many other families in the same situation. So there are many ways of how we balance that as parents, of course. The reason I've raised this particular link and resource is I thought it was quite fascinating, the fact that there's been a whole board or a whole community set up around actually discussing the issues that gamification and particularly Minecraft is having on their families. It's having that much of an impact. It's pretty big. You see it's back to 2015 there. We're at 2018. Way ahead. So here we go, going way ahead, 2018. Okay, so people have started to, as we know, very much so, and the same thing's been said about every form of technology that's ever popped up. We've got to find a middle ground. We've got to find where things occur and where things occur well. We've got to, as Joe was saying earlier, be aware of where we can put the brakes on, or where we can steer people into examining not only their interaction hours in terms of their virtual spend, but also what they're doing in a physical realm. And that's really where my research has sort of taken me, examining how do we, you know, this guy here, these MMOs, this channel, essentially just about killed their household, quite literally. You know, like, it's incredibly addictive. I found myself in there laughing my head off for weeks on end with some of the things that they were getting up to. And such a clever fusion, such a convincing fusion of physical and virtual realities between the people running these things are incredible. They're so addictive. And we were finding as a family, we'd switched off from watching everything else except been getting into these sorts of spaces. And it became a real battle to get my kids back out of there. You know, it's almost like they had to go on cold turkey to get out off this particular channel. But to top it off, more than anything else, in the last year, as I've written here in my slides, I hold this single young man responsible for some of the most conflictual moments of screen downtime with my 2 sons and any other individual on the internet. And he was, this Dan guy was, you know, he was realming, he was just basically jumping through all these different amazing hoops within Minecraft and other games. And just, he's now got, I think it's an animated friend channel, and he gets paid apparently 15 grand a day. He's got 17 million subscribers. He joined YouTube on July the 14th, 2012. And incredibly, his YouTube videos have had 11 billion, 865,674,225 years as of the 12th of January 2017. It's not even up to date. So the thing about him was that it just permeated our whole household, and I watched my kids not playing Minecraft and watching other people playing Minecraft and other games. They started to not participate. So we have to be very careful about this participation side, the fact that creativity is involved in collaborative enterprise. I found them being rapidly just being consumers of other people's memory and idea. That's where I've got onto here, talking about loci. I think that there's a whole rhetoric around spatial learning via virtual learning that we've basically come full circle, essentially. So Sarah basically came up with this idea that method of loci, this idea of locating ourselves, that means in a physical, spatial context, gives us the ability to actually have a memory of culture. And the method of loci, it's basically a technique to memorize not only numbers, but also to memorize and also to understand and relate to the layout of building, the arrangements of things in culture, a geographical entity of understanding space and time together. Now, the biggest area that I see of research need is around the fact that much of the interactions that particularly my children are having are that they have lost any, or not lost all, but lost a great deal of their ability to actually spatially memorize where things are occurring, except in a virtual context. When and we're doing it also as adults too, because we have the GPS driving us from one spot to the other. Even though we know how to get there, we've still got the thing on and just checking to make sure. So perhaps, and there's some of the debates around, are we losing our memory and losing our method of loci as a result of these virtual technologies? And is this whole idea of actually concentrating our whole our creative time in Minecraft by concentrating on a fractal environment, which is basically a mathematical square peg for square hole sort of routine, are we actually omitting those sort of rounded experiences that we have in reality? Everything doesn't fit neatly. I mean, the architectures might fit neatly in terms of what we saw happen earlier. Yes, they all fit neatly together, but in reality, the world is not like that in total. So what I'm getting at is there that perhaps are we going to have a time that's known as architecturally, the Minecraft era, when we had Bauhaus, or we had other sort of postmodern styles, something like Cubism. Maybe it just is. We have to recognise that it's had that amount of significance that it's actually changing the architectures of participation virtually, but also the changing architectures of where we live and how we inhabit, and also how we memorise and how we interact with culture. So it's really squeezing things down and bringing a fusion of those things together. Some people will see things that are really good about that, and other people will have concerns about that. So an aspect to that is this idea of cultural memory, the memory palace. And the memory palace is this notion that in our minds we can visualize and we can interact with and we can associate and bring things together in our mind. And those things that are in our mind that are coming together are not presented to us just through one sense, our eyes, or interacting through our ears. Our imagination and our memory palace is made up of a whole range of things which are grounded in a physical reality. And that cultural memory of place, some people are pitching, is being replaced by this corporate-led placelessness. So what they're stating there is that perhaps Minecraft, although it's creating a place for us to interact in a virtual context, it's not providing us that in a physical context. So unless we can replicate that in a physical context as well, the question is it an erosive place to be interacting, or is it an explosive place of new realms of being? And there's many, many different debates around that. And as a researcher, we have to sort of toe that grey line. So my research really looks at what are the mechanisms where we can gain and that sense of place, that sense of connection with country or place, and consistently that place or that idea of place is by tapping into this idea of the sixth sense, the intuition. And I think there's a huge amount of space there to look at or research to examine whether our younger generations are losing their sense of intuition. They're being provided more and more of what is, rather than essentially them understanding and having this deep sense that something is inherently wrong that is shaping their life. And how do they get quiet space when they are constantly bombarded with everything that they need to be within a virtual space? If the computers are now on their head, they are the computer. When do they get any quiet time? Where's the downtime? Always on. So, in some obscure way, but a direct way, my partner, Magdalene McDuffie, and I, who live up here in Broome, we've sort of connected with the Nigana community up here, and the Nigana people have always stated that place, physical interaction, this living moments of humanity in a physical space far outweigh anything that is ever happening within a virtual domain. They're very worried, they repeatedly state their worry about children who are more interested in being in a virtual context and interacting in a physical context, that it's replicating that their way of interacting around memory and also around listening. And this is basically, it's the antithesis to what the corporations like Facebook, Google, and Microsoft are saying at this point in time. They're stating collectively that essentially the Anthropocene is ending. Our realm as humans is to accept transhumanist, a singularity, basically a space where there is no need to worry about place because everything is an entity that's placeless. They don't need to be contactable because they are the law. They are the people who are giving us what we should be interacting with for free too. And essentially that renders them sometimes unaccountable as far as many First Nation people are concerned. If you're uncontactable, you operate in a placeless entity, and essentially the nature of the corporations are to drill identity and location and data, then essentially it's the most erosive part of humanity. And it's a recurring dialogue that's happening. And the picture there is the diagrammatic picture there is of my partner's journey through her own PhD for that 7-year period of interacting with them as a filmmaker and listening to what is important to them. And as it always comes out in the centre, it's around listening to what's occurring within place, country, not virtual domains, but in the physical domain. I reckon the stuff that Joe, as I've written on the slides presentation, the things that I've seen Joe do over the years have been, I think, the closest I've seen to a healthy and not only useful, but considered and critical way of engaging with groups of people, both in a physical and a virtual domain, a balance. And Joe's always, from everything that I can recall and also seen, has always sort of engaged users in that sort of embodied sense of being, not just simply. It's been a real focus on the collaborative, humane, interactive element of the space, not simply because it can be done, and not simply because it's a novelty, but because it is an actual living space, and the replications that she builds in there could well be. I would like to see the stuff happen. You know, the things that Joe builds in world, I'd like to see them in world. I reckon half the things that she's building in a virtual context will be just absolutely amazing. Physical context, is it possible? When will we? You know, when will we be so inspired by things that we start building those actual things and map it into an actual architectural realm? You know? Practical applications in Minecraft. You know? And so I think that's Joe's really one to be following as far as I'm concerned. And of course, there's plenty of research out there that is bumping its head up against ceilings where it's a very, very new, in a research context, it's still a very early days in terms of mapping how this is shifting and changing humanity. In a virtual world's research context, children are developing some incredible insights and skills, but there's an onset of virtualization. You know, we know this. There are social controls that are incredibly pervasive that are creeping in through the gaming space. It's a ubiquitous technology that they're mapping it into, the nature of wearable, and most importantly, we're moving towards a surveillance-enriched environment. And believe it or not, much of the research that's being done is not around wearable technology. It's almost come and gone. It's around implantable technology. How do these technologies become a part of an implantable profile for humanity? And that's really around corporate controlled engineering and busting of users' data from the person being a node in the whole system. The urbivalence side of the picture, which really sort of polarizes. It's an incredibly polarizing and frighteningly dystopic type of picture. But essentially, technology is moving closer to humanity. We're wearing it. All domains are now being worn. Can you imagine a virtual reality when we are implanted with that reality, that technology? And last of all, last slide, just to finish kind of where I might ramble, is that I think much of the research on the user and consumer, I think it's about time that research also pointed the lens as to what it is. We need to see what it is that these corporations such as Microsoft, Facebook, and Google, these large corporations, we need to see what it is that they're doing with their literally millions of analysts, what they're doing with the data that they're harvesting out of our interaction in these environments that are hosted by them, developed by them, consumed by them. You know, it's about time that they are put under the lens, and that was the reason I kind of coined the title of the present, or this engagement was around. This has been my experience, but essentially it's not just your dilemma, but it's also our dilemma. How do we now move forward, knowing that when we interact in these spaces, that they are being tapped, and how does that shift our educational arrangement to a healthy and environmentally conscious or a spiritually guided reality? How do we come back to that when we've lost people so far into a virtual domain that they're starting to slip in the physical domain? How do we come back for that healthy, healthy breath of air? I think some people would say. So Vance, I'm open to any questions and comments and where people are at really, since that's sort of taken me from where we last chatted, 2016, and also what I'm seeing around this sort of corporate placelessness discussion that's coming up.
Yeah, I've seen lots of nods and smiles in the windows here, and there have been some comments and questions put in the chat. So if anybody would like to um, say something,
Sure, that'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'll stop sharing my screen so people can chat.
Mm-hmm.
Please feel free to over-talk each other here, because this is the point where you can open your mic up and really, let it roll.
Jeff Kuhn, one of our group members, has I guess, an Oculus Rift headset, and he made a video recently and posted it on our in our Google Space. I wonder if Don is seeing that. What was Don's comment? You said, let's see if I can find it, or maybe you can tell me, Don. What did you say about?
It says what's interesting about watching people engaged in their devices is how completely joyless they appear.
No, that was another one. What did you say, Don?
That's another one.
Yeah.
Go, Don.
Yeah, I just said I thought Minecraft and Oculus Rift seemed like a terrible combination.
Yeah.
Watching Jeff's interaction, I'd almost agree. But anyway,
I see this. I see this as Minecraft is nice. Oculus Rift might be nice, but putting the two together takes what is ultimately a nice, simple playable game and turns it into something that's simply over-teched. That's me.
I think you make a pretty good point, Don. I've spent some time playing with Minecraft with Oculus Rift, and I've been playing Minecraft for a long time, so I understand the dynamics of Minecraft at your keyboard versus Minecraft on a headset. It is insanely cool tech, and when you first use it, your mouth drops to the, your jaw drops, and it's amazing, and there is a real sense of being there in a space. But it's not a populated space. It's not a space where I feel any connection to the other people who were standing next to me and booths next to me playing with it. And I think Microsoft are using it as a example, to show off the tech. It's pretty, but it's not particularly useful. And when you talk to kids around how they feel about headsets and Minecraft, they're not particularly interested. Younger kids play Minecraft on not wearable devices. They're not interested in headsets, but they're interested in iPads and iPhones. So they want to take their Minecraft with them everywhere they go. Older kids who are more interested in getting into the kind of building amazing creation stuff are still old school at their keyboard playing Minecraft with their ASWD keys like gamers have for 20 years. And I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. That's not to say that I don't think Microsoft are already looking for ways to use HoloLens with Minecraft, but I don't think it's going to replace the kind of play that we've been engaging within Evo anytime soon. I think they're going to start to use it for things like, and I posted a link in the Evo group this week about a project, a planned project actually, where they're using Minecraft to get girls in various countries in Asia to actually use Minecraft to model how they could improve their community, and particularly how they could improve safety for women in their community. So they're asking them to build safe structures and use it as a building environment. I think there's probably a place for HoloLens and for, that kind of immersive augmentation with Minecraft as the building engine underneath it. But I don't think that's where the gaming space is going to go. And as much as there is a lot of hype around VR in gaming, and I know a lot of game designers and developers who are really interested in that, I think gamers still like to sit with their Xbox, and they still want to play at their keyboard. And if you look at the numbers around gaming across all sorts of, different MMOs, Minecraft, World of Warcraft, all the Blizzard games, EVE Online, so, from the very old ones to the very new ones, we're still, very much within that kind of keyboard or game controller kind of dynamic at the moment. And I think it's going to be a while yet. We're not quite ready for the world of Ready Player One and Ender's Game and that sort of stuff just yet.
Yeah, it's interesting, Joe. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I was hearing, you know, back in the engineering space from 2013 forward. You know, it's very much around. Still a long tail and a long engagement to get this into an org-mediated space, where the wearable is blended with the virtual. People are still clinging on to these legacy platforms. My kids play it on their computer or on iPad. You know, they're not, you know, they have, they've tried it on all types of VR and AR stuff all the time, but they still cling back to chatting with each other, you know, like actually physically getting in a tussle with each other about it too, laughing with each other in a physical context with each other. They don't disappear in other rooms yet. They did do it for a bit, and then they all come back again.
Yeah, I think that actually feeds into some of what you were saying around that disconnection. And, you know, when you put on a headset and you go into those spaces, there is a bit of a disconnection from, you know, who you're playing with and who's in the space with you that I don't see in the kind of sense of immersiveness and being there that I experience behind the keyboard. And with the kids that I play with, they know each other deeply. You know, they play Minecraft together, you know, for several hours every week. And a lot of them have been playing together for years and years. And there is a real sense of ownership and being there together in the way that they play on our server. They talk to each other in Discord. So although they might be able to touch each other in the physical space, there is a real sense of connection and a sense of being there. And Minecraft is one of the few games that consistently allows that. And I think part of it is actually to do with the fact that we can break it down and use it in smaller communities like we've been doing with Evo, or like I do with Massively, where it's not thousands and thousands and thousands of players like it is when you play on a World of Warcraft server, for example. It's the community that you choose to play with. And when we, you know, play Minecraft on a server like we're playing with Evo, it's disconnected from Microsoft. They don't have any control over what we do. It's on our rented server space. We choose the flavor of the game that we're going to run. So yeah, we use that engine that Mojang created, that Notch made, but we actually choose what mods and plugins that we'll have and what the permissions will be of our game and how we'll decide who's allowed to have access and who's not and all those sorts of things. So it is actually, and one of the reasons why it's had such an impact on the virtual spaces I work in is specifically because it actually circumvents some of the things that I think you're making very good points about around how, you know, big business can actually control our and monitor and surveil our use of online tech. That there's still an element of indie gamer in Minecraft that comes from Notch's, you know, background in you know, in making those very kind of you know, small community grassroots type game spaces.
Yeah, we saw the same thing with the onset of the internet and being able to host our own servers, our own sites in our own way. And the points I was making were more around how the corporatization and buyout and blend into the consumer space start to own. They start to take away that creative reality that we had.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. But
I'm not certainly not saying that it's that they. Well, you know where I'm coming from with it, Joe. It's more there when, in this context, when the Australian government can say 2 years mandatory, we can get into any data that you have without even any warrant. You know, we are starting to move in a warrantless environment where our pipes are being tapped without us even knowing that it's occurring. And a lot of this is being driven by this corporate need to know what we're doing, where we are. You know, where we are, how we are, our geolocation, and what we're interacting with and whom. So that information is incredibly important to them, and we do everything we can to circumvent that. That's the nature of who we are, what we do. And I noted that when I was at the Computer Freedom Privacy Conference in Washington, 2014, with Cory Doctorow and the whole onset of the Snowden files and everything else, we suddenly realised that there's a huge backlash to the fact that corporations are trying to take over these spaces. You know, when Microsoft took over Mojang, there was a huge stink like massive stink around it. Are they going to be building into the softwares here this intrusive, all-seeing, all-knowing type of arrangement? And we're now in 2018. So where did Microsoft take Minecraft? How much did it get its toes in the code? And that's what intrigues me.
Well, I don't think we've actually seen yet where they're actually going to take it. But what we have seen is a shift in how education happens in Minecraft. For example, you know, back in the day, you set up a server like Evo and you ran it in your classroom, and you had a fair amount of, you know, you had independence, and you made the same sorts of decisions as we've made for Evo around how you'll run the game. These days, most implementations of Minecraft in schools uses Minecraft Education Edition, which is, you know, connected to your my Office 365 account. And, you know, it's fairly obvious that they're using it to sell those services to schools because it's all packaged in.
Absolutely.
And there's more and more of a move for it to run on Microsoft servers. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying at all, but I'm saying that Minecraft is one of the few games, and you know, there are lots of indie games out there that you can do this with too, but it's one of the few hugely impactful games where, you know, with a geek like Aaron running a server for you, or me running massively, and hundreds of thousands of kids who run their own little servers outside of Realms on their own little servers, even on their own computer at home, you're actually able to circumvent that to a degree and actually still have some autonomy and some freedom of creativity that's beyond the kind of corporate Borg.
That's where the creativity element is in remaining out of there. So, Joe, I'm really thankful that you popped online to give us your insights on that as well. I've kind of been very intrigued with where these virtual domains are creeping into that wearable space, and really the output of the PhD is looking at how do we healthily keep a balance between the virtual and the physical. And we always knew that was going to be the outcome of this in any context. I went down the realm, as you know, being so avidly involved in the things, I actually lost sight of who I was in the physical world, and I think that the contribution that Minecraft is making, as you're saying, in that small community and clustered space is quite profound. It's having a massive impact on my sons. My son runs his own server. He has a number of his classmates, and he's now going to a private school in Canberra based on his ability to code and all the rest of it. So I'm experiencing it firsthand where he's at in that role. And Minecraft has played had a huge impact on him in that space. You know, picking up from what he thought to be a very simple game to he's no longer a shy boy. You know, he's actually a kid who has friends, virtual, physical, all over the place, just through Minecraft itself. So thanks, Joe.
Let's hear from Jane about Matty. How is Matty? Yeah. She's got a very precocious young guy. Not the first child who's joined us with his mother in our world. So, well, anyway, what is Matty gaining from this?
Well, hi, yeah. Matty has been playing since like 4 years old, and ever since he was introduced to Minecraft, he was hooked. So I bought him the set of Minecraft manuals, and he's starting to look at the pictures. I read them, the words, and he started watching popular modes, Minecraft, yeah. And that's the only channel I allow him to watch because I like the dialogue between Pat and Jen. Of course. Really funny ones. Other Minecraft YouTubers, they're only one person. It's a monologue, and I really I really like that he has like dialogue input and how people interact, and that's the type of authentic language that he is exposed to. It's interesting because he's learned a lot from the videos, and he's able to. And I'm so surprised that he was doing his own research on the videos, and then he was replicating the stuff that he saw in the videos and doing it in his creative mode in our EVO server, and that I think that it's just amazing. I've shown the video to my college students in my English listening and speaking class. The same video that Maddie watches, they couldn't understand because their speech was simply too fast for them to understand. And so I was like, I was very, very surprised because he's young, and he was able to, because of his love for Minecraft, and because he knows the terms, the things that the materials, the resources, and he was able to pick up a very rapid, like fast speech of native speakers, Pat and Jen, interacting, and sometimes he would pick up the language and speak it, and I was pretty surprised. So he learned a lot from the popular music videos, and playing in our EVO server. I see the child privacy issue here, because I was amazed that he built a lab, a potion. He wants to build, like he built his own house, but he has a secret lab that he doesn't want anyone else to know. And I only knew because he was using the computer next to mine. Otherwise, I would not know that he would hide like a breeding potion machine inside a lab, and he would cover it up so that nobody else would see it, although it's under his basement. And that's his very secret stuff. Like, if I were not his mom and sitting next to him, I wouldn't know that. I would question his behavior. Why would you want to hide this? This is not something that is precious or valuable that people would break it or anything, but you're hiding this from me and from anyone else on the server. And so, but I'm also interested in how he interacts with people on the server, the language that he speaks. And I kind of want to record everything and analyze how he's learning from communicating with people online, the collaboration and the language exposure that's so rich. And Don, because of Don, I'm very interested in, Don has an expertise in conversation analysis, and I'm starting to look into that. And thank you for your presentation.
Oh, not at all. It also introduces this this notion around, for researchers, that the complexities and the sort of paradoxes they have when we reach into a young child's real world, and if we're uncovering secrets, we're also in some way ethically, we need to be very careful around what that means in terms of that individual's reality, not their virtual reality, but their reality in their own sense of self, their own spirit. So that's really the trigger around, and this notion of netnography, this notion of digital-based investigation and research, where we say we want to record everything you do. That in its own right is a surveillance that we've got to be very careful about. So, and it opens up such a richness of not only potential research, but also around the notions of how, if we are doing that, if we as researchers are thinking it's incredibly rich, it's incredibly new, it's actually opening up a completely new realm for the way that our learners and our children are interacting. Now picture yourself as the corporation. The corporation already has its view into your children's secrets. The corporation already has its analysts who are looking into the way that people interact. They already have that. They already have that knowledge ahead of us. And so as researchers, we need to be looking up at them as well, not just what the richness is within the, because it's all exciting in there, you know. But the exciting part for me is also looking back on the corporation. And not only, I'm not just saying, as Joe indicated there are many, many spaces that are not run in a corporate context. They run in a very private context, and they run offline too. So what we're looking at is, I'm interested in where does the corporation and its power and politics play in the way that our children are now growing and living. So that's another area of research. So I'm really thankful you brought that up about your son. And he sounds like a very clever child, very clever.
Yeah, we're not just looking at his language, but his behavior online, and everything could be recorded. So thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
This is very similar to, well, it's what got me into Minecraft, what actually pushed me to set up, to conceive EVO Minecraft MOOC was Mariana Smolchetz and her son Philip. Similar experiences with his language development, and I got Mariana to interview him for an article that we published in Tessel EJ, and it's very parallel. And there's another thing too that when I was interacting with Don the other night, because I jumped into a temple when I first discovered one, I didn't really know how to do it. He didn't coach me. He thought that I probably already knew how to do this, but I jumped in and blew everything up. And so then he got me into a biome where we found another temple, and then he showed me how to do it. But he told me that you go in by the side. He said that's the way Matty did it, because Matty showed him how to not just jump in, but you go over to the side and come down into a corner so you don't land on the TNT. So this is one thing that about Minecraft, and I'm sure Joe has this experience all the time, that the kids are teaching the teachers. So it blurs the distinction, or maybe even flips the distinction between teachers and who's teaching whom, you know. So that's one of the things I really like about it, is that the kids become very empowered and powerful. And
well, as Don was saying, that's essentially as it should be. That learners can be leading the way. As educators, we're giving them a range of skills and a range of ways of working that that empower them around not only caution but also around interaction. I remember having to teach.
I would absolutely agree with that. And what I would say is, what I observe is that one of the things kids learn in Minecraft is how to be members of a learning community. And I would say that what I do with kids in Massively is very much a community of practice. And yes, our community of practice is focused on gaming skills at the moment, and, you know, web-based skills using forums and Skype and, you know, YouTube and those sorts of things. And, you know, that's our area, our focus of learning, that the skills that they're developing and how they collaborate and how they make meaning together are really powerful. And when I watch the young people who are starting to go to university now, that have come through Massively and all sorts of other games that they've played as well, those kids are equipped in ways, in terms of the way that they seek and seek information and process and make meaning out of information in ways that when I was 18, were just unfathomable, you know. And I think that, you know, Minecraft isn't the only game where that's happening, but it's definitely one where it's happening in really rich ways. And, you know, I think Maha asked me the other day if I knew stuff about redstone, and I said, oh yeah, I know a bit about redstone, but I'm not a redstone expert because I've got little miners for that. you know. So as a facilitator, I've actually decided I don't need to learn that, because there's a whole bunch of 13-year-old kids who are fantastic at it, and they do that work on our server. I don't need to. So Minecraft really does flip that dynamic in really fantastic and empowering ways. And you know, I see a bunch of my little minor boys in particular, kids who have all sorts of learning differences. We have a lot of kids who are on the autism spectrum in massively, and you know, those kids are uber experts at Redstone, and this is the first time that they lead learning, and they're highly respected and valued for what they bring to the community. So it can have some amazing impacts in, you know, for kids in the way that they develop confidence in their ability to be teachers and learners with other people. So yeah,
very true, Joe. That's exactly where it's at. And when I was trying to teach my students how to, in the early days, how to use Flash when it first came out, I soon learned that I was way behind the eight ball in terms of the pickup, in terms of the intuition of learning using that particular platform at the time. And it's never ceased. It's the same. I'm amazed at how particularly my two sons interact, but how they're starting to interact socially has also changed as a result of their interaction in these spaces such as Minecraft. It was for a short period of time conflictual, and then, as you said, we built up a range of different discourses to examine, for them to self-examine, and also for them to interact with us around appropriateness and around just everything from the amount of time that they were engaging in there to the way that they interacted with each other and with other people. It's a double-edged sword as far as I'm seeing it. I'm very interested in how the corporations are tapping around data, but I'm also very, very inspired by the ways that as you are saying, the base foundation for Minecraft is an incredibly powerful tool, and none more powerful than some of the others that we've seen in the past around collaboration and so on.
I don't know if he's still with us, but one really great, not just a teacher, but a modeler in Minecraft is Mircea Patrascu, who's shown here. I don't know if he's with us, but he teaches coding, teaches kids codes in Minecraft, has shown us some pretty amazing things on his servers. But what he's done, actually, Maha mentioned the other day that she wanted to visit a jungle temple, and Mircea made this little path through the jungles that comes out on the big fire. So I think it was between the EVO sessions, some of us got into Minecraft and just to practice, followed these quests that Mircea set up. And you know, he's modeling how to be a really good teacher in Minecraft, because that's what you would want to do with your students, I think. You know, he keeps a blog, and he calls himself by his initials, MP. You know, you almost see him laughing there. And he writes in his blog about how MP went into some place and repaid all his old drinking debts with some diamonds he produced from somewhere. And then he goes off and disappears in the jungles. And anyway, he sort of writes it as a news report, but you have to read this, and then you have to go and find where he's been. One time he posted a bunch of pictures, and we had to go follow the pictures and find out from what angle and where should we go to I believe it was to find some temples in one of the desert biomes. But anyway, that's you know, he really intrigues us as teachers into how to follow these quests and interact with each other, and then the interaction is where the magic is. And so it's
very
really,
true. The interaction is where the magic is. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And we learn that. See, actually, what I think we're learning about gamification by doing what we're doing. We don't really understand it intuitively, but once you get into a gamified situation where you're learning, what you're learning here is in the context of a world. So we go into Minecraft and we learn from each other, but basically we're learning how to interact in Minecraft and learn things, whatever you want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm very much absolutely. Yeah. I'm very much, as I was indicating in the presentation, I'm very much interested in knowing what the corporates are learning about, what is happening, what sort of data and what sort of intelligences are they gathering around the way that our learners are interacting in these spaces as well. What insight are they getting? You know, like they have a huge view in on millions of people simultaneously interacting in spaces and in social contexts, and utilising that interaction for their own benefit, you know, in a consumer sense. That's one side. Of course, I've always been interested in the nature of, as we have as educators, in being involved and throwing ourselves in amongst the tools occasionally when we don't know where we're at. A couple of years later, we find a new one, throw ourselves into the new one and test that one out. Same thing we did when Second Life came along. Reaction Grid, Halo, any of that. We threw ourselves forward to see where we're at in terms of intelligences around, to know where our learners were at. Yeah, so as a researcher, you tend to sit back away from and looking at you and everyone else and thinking, wow, these guys have really stepped forward into another whole realm, for want of a better word. And it intrigues me, Vance. It really intrigues me how just how courageous you are and other people are, because these spaces are, you know, incredibly complicated. You know, and it's amazing to see people taking up the challenge and getting in there. I've sort of been thrown into it, Vance, I suppose, because I have children who are 4, 6, and 8, and, you know, and then I've got the older, you know, 18, 19-year-olds and 26-year-old who are being coached by the little ones. So it's actually been basically a necessity and exposure to that side by side. So and I think some of the other people on here too, that's their experience too. They're exposed to it and they're intrigued by it, and they eventually find themselves in there at the same time.
I think Minecraft was invented around 2009 or developed in 2009. Was that?
That's right. Yeah. That's correct.
It was shortly after that that the podcast world started lighting up with teachers talking about how they were using this tool and putting videos online. And I became quite intrigued with it and thought about how I could use it in teaching, but I found it was very difficult to actually play the game, to get into the game. You know, you could buy a copy. Sort of Don had this experience when he first came on. He was wandering around worlds all by himself. And but he had a community he could reach out to, and then eventually he came into our world and has been thriving there. But I kind of wandered around the concept for several years. So it was in 2015, I think, that we started EVO Minecraft MOOC. But so it took me, 5 years to actually say, okay, I'm going to do this. And as I mentioned, it was Mariana who and her son Philip who kind of became the incentive for, okay, we're going to do this. We're just going to declare a MOOC and we're going to bring people together and we're going to learn about this. And well, that started this. You know. So we had people
it's always been that.
Yeah.
I've been watching Jo, you know, interacting around and essentially observing how Jo's developed. Not only her business enterprise, but also the nature of her learning and connections between these virtual realms as well. Not just simply as separate entities, but also how the parallels of growing, collaborative, you know, they've really, really polished the way that she encourages other people to interact. And that critical pedagogy is where things need to be. Not simply they're just as consumers to play a game and enjoy it, but they're also having an understanding that it's having a very real and impactful impression upon how we live our life in reality, in a physical realm. There's been a lot. There's a great deal of research missing around the impactful ways that parents have not coped the ways that parents have, and the ways that educators have not been able to interact in that space, or nor understand it, rather just been critical of it, you know, or shutting it down, shutting it off. So, and we've seen that with the mobile phone in the classroom setting, and we've seen it with gaming. You know, gaming's taking too much time up the kids' time when they're in their home setting. And then it's become mobile. Now we can't get them off this. Every time we go to the restaurant, the kid wants the screen and just wants to be on Minecraft. Like, it really has had an impact on our life fully. So it's a big picture. It's a fascinating one. And the one that I see coming up is the fact that this virtual context is also now becoming worn. People are able to interact with that space and interact also with reality at the same time. And that blend, that hybrid, is a massive shift in humanity. It's a huge shift in humanity. I thought it was science fiction. At one point, the science fiction writers were writing about that. Now it's a reality in context, and I've seen it with my own eyes within a research context. Yeah. What's Don saying there? I'm pretty sure that Microsoft isn't doing the right sort of analysis. Quite possibly, but I'll tell you what, they're doing an awful lot of it. Yeah, ethnomethodology is probably the key to understanding as to whether culture is developing or whether it's eroding. And as Jane was saying earlier, she believes that it's forging a different reality for her engagement with her own son. She's seeing a new thing emerge. But she's also aware of the fact that she feels like she would like to know more about what he's doing. And as I questioned there, we've got to be very careful about that. Our kids have to have some sense of privacy too in this transparent world, you know, where they have little transparency and little privacy any further. Yeah, there's a whole range of things in there. So thanks, Vance, very much for inviting me along. I'm really always in gratitude to your connecting me in with the communities and the amazing people that you work with. You know, it really is. It's a privilege.
Yeah, they're all overlapping communities, and it's really nice for you to join us and to interact in your world as well. Someone mentioned, you said you had a book called Teaching and Learning Online. That's a nice community here in Australia. And I went and visited Barbara too because of that, I think. That's how I got to know her. But I didn't go there to New Zealand.
No, these are actual books. They're called, it's called a paper book that we produced from the experiences of interacting in New Zealand when we all came together.
I remember books. Yes.
You remember books too. I remember books too. And I bought this. It's an interesting book recently. Who Can You Trust? And it's written by Rachel Botsman, and it's quite an incredible read.
Kindle version.
There's a Kindle version, of course, but I suppose the whole point of that I'm making is that I've watched a whole generation of children who have become averse to interacting in a physical realm with each other rapidly and increasingly. In some senses, I've seen that as a real detriment to their life, and yet I've seen also new things emerge within those kids in different ways that I never thought possible. So it's a life balance that we've got to come up with here, and these experiences, they're no different to here. Back in 2006, we were grappling with the very same issues, as you know, Vance, with where will our learning management systems take us? You know, will they lock down learning and stop us interacting with each other as students? And what did it do? Well, it opened up a different way of engaging, different communication. It didn't necessarily crash everything, but we certainly we were challenged by it, and I see this as just another challenge. Yeah.
Can I
Sure.
give an example of an experience that I had? I have a friend who has 2 kids. Now the elder is 14 and the younger one is around 12, perhaps, or When they were younger, around 9 and 10 or 9 and 12, the older the boy is very outspoken and sometimes even aggressive, but he's a lovely boy, very intelligent and so on. The girl is very laid back, very cooperative and so on, and very quiet. I love her to bits, and when I see her, for example, I hug her and kiss her and so on, and she has no problem with that. But she never spoke. She never expressed herself. Whoever wanted to do anything or play in a certain way in real life, she went along with them. She was easy to be around, but she would actually almost disappear from the scene because she didn't have any voice with them, not a lot at least. Then a couple of years ago, you all know, at least the Evo people know Dak. He has I know Dak from World of Warcraft, from a guild that is All Educator Guild, and I've been playing with him for a while. And so he created a realm, and I asked him if I could invite the 2 kids, and I did. That little girl transformed. I couldn't believe. I mean, I never tried to talk to her in voice during the game. I just chatted with her or talked to her and played with her in game using the normal text chat and so on. She was completely different. I discovered something that I didn't know about her, and I thought perhaps, okay, I'm not the mom, I didn't know. But the problem is that until today, her mom, who's my best friend, one of my best friends, she keeps complaining that her daughter is too shy, too introverted. She doesn't like people. She doesn't know how to talk to, and she gets even at school with her classmates and with her teacher and so on. I told her, you don't want to play with her. She plays with them. I mean, the mother is excellent in wanting them to, I mean, she tries to always get them engaged in outdoor activities and tabletop games together and so on. So she's very, very involved with them in the real life, but she doesn't want to play with them, the computer games, and she actually hates computer games. So I told her, you should see how your daughter transforms in game. She was the one who was always taking care of me, initiating different types of gameplay, starting adventures, and not only me. She always invited Dak and her brother, and I mean, she was a completely different child. It would have been strange, or at least, well, I would have had to think about it if she was only that way in game and that didn't transfer or didn't get translated in any way in the real life. But I noticed a change in her in dealing with me and in talking with me after that. She was more she had more courage to come and talk to me and start very well thought. I mean, she had well thought ideas and conversation, and almost adult-like. And I thought, that's a completely different person. I didn't know that child, and I think even her mother doesn't know her enough. So, in my opinion, if her mother gets into the game, she will see it completely different, or she'll start discovering things about her girl. Because also another thing that I noticed, for example, that in real life to her I'm anti-Maha, but in game, intuitively, she just started talking to me as Olive and nothing else. I'm just another playmate with respect, with the consideration to my needs and everything like everybody else. But I was just another player in the game. Anyways, that's enough for me.
That's great, Maha. Yeah, that's a similar thing that I see happening with my 2 sons as well. That one was very quiet and very shy, but he was able to excel and show a completely different range of skill bases that his younger brother doesn't have, has changed the relatedness that even that I have with my ex-wife as well in that regard, in understanding that children are developing differently and in different spaces, and in these in a virtual context, they can be as important to that child spiritually as they are in a physical realm. And somehow we've got to find the healthy connect between both. I did attempt to join my son in world in different ways at times. He eventually said, "That's okay, Dad. I know you're cool, but you're not that cool. Please, you know, can you keep going with when you're building your avatar in Second Life? Because I'm over here doing things with my mates." That's fair enough. But we have, yeah, as you were saying, we have to be able to is face that fear and also reach out and reach in, as you're saying, reach into that space. Don't be frightened to do that part, but we've got to be very careful, as Chien was saying also earlier, about how far we reach in there. And they do have their own secrets. Yeah, they will. Absolutely. They do in real life anyway. So we've got to be careful. That's their privacy. We've got to be very careful when we're playing in that space.
I think, to be honest, I mean, whether we give them space and allow them their own privacy in real world as well as in a virtual world, is something that parents find a bit difficult, but have to learn to do it. But also, there is a way of becoming more involved without being threatening or without being overpowering. Because again, another example that was a bit scary for me and a bit sad, on another server that was run mainly by a university student and his friends. One of them came in one day, somebody that I didn't know or hadn't seen much of, and he said that his girlfriend committed suicide. I knew that a couple of the players were under 13, and I guess that one of them might have been even 9. And one of the girls used to play with me and Dak a lot, and I thought perhaps it's just right. Yeah, it's fair that she knows that I'm much older than her. So I told her that, and I asked her if she if her mother likes Minecraft, if she played with her, if she does, if she tells her about what happens in the game and so on. She says yeah, and she was a very sweet girl. But a week or two later, she in a private conversation, in a private messaging system, she asked me a question about why do people kill themselves. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get emotional a little bit, because I thought, oh my God, imagine if this girl doesn't have anybody in, I mean, privacy is good, but she also needs to talk about things like that. And if those environments are don't have friendly moderators, I really love what Joe is doing. Who do they turn to? I mean, they are supposed to turn to their parents, of course, but if the parents are not involved in their world in that way, in the gaming, in the playing, and so on, they feel that that is completely separate than what mom and dad is supposed to get involved with, in my opinion. I mean, at least that's what I've been seeing.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head through everything you just said, Maha. It's one of the biggest challenges for me is how do you actually facilitate a game space for kids and give them that sense of freedom and autonomy, and that sense of ownership, that it's their space, it's a kid's space, but at the same time make sure that it's managed and safe in terms of privacy and you know, those sorts of things, but also emotional safety. How do we make sure that when there is a kid who comes on and says something really earth-shattering that's happening in their lives, how do we make sure that the little ones understand, or how do we, make sure that everybody's okay? And, so my strategy has been that everybody who's on Massively has to sign up, and I have to have contact with their parents. So there's, I've got email addresses and cell phone numbers and Skype contacts and things like that for every kid's parents. And there have been 2 occasions in 8 years, nearly 9 years, where I have actually had to send out an email to parents saying, look, this happened on the server and your kids were online. I've looked in the logs. Your kids were online when this happened. I just wanted to let you know about it so that you can have a dialogue with your child about what's happened. We had an instance where a young guy who was 13 at the time was very depressed, and his grandmother died. And he came onto the server and he said, I hate my life and I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be with my grandma. And I had 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 14-year-olds on the server. And what do you do? And I think what it really illustrates is that we, as trusted adults who play with kids, have to make sure that in the real world, outside of the virtual, there is that support. There is those support mechanisms, and there is adults that we can alert to, hey, you need to be aware that this happened and your kid's going to need some support. But it's a huge challenge, and it's one of the things about the negatives about that huge ecosystem of Minecraft servers out there is that some parents let their kids play Minecraft and really don't have an awareness that they might be playing on a safe server like my server, but they're also playing on some really unsafe places where, very adult discussions are happening, or, they're being exposed to concepts that they don't necessarily have the maturity to deal with yet. So huge challenges around that, and not just in Minecraft, in all online gaming.
Yeah, that's the key to it. In all spaces, appropriate disclosure and appropriate. The way that you work with that shows what we admire. Yeah.
My wife is giving me cold dinner looks. And it's we have 6 more hours to go theoretically in the hangout, because it can go for 8 hours. But
yeah, theoretically.
I know it's quite late where Alex is, and I think maybe even the same time zone as where Don is in Japan. And I can't imagine. I don't know, Joe. Are you in the east or the west of Australia?
Yeah, it's nearly 3 a.m. here.
There you go. Okay.
That's almost uncivil.
Not so late here, but I have to get up at 5 in the morning, which is, well, it's still it's still about 9 hours from now. It's not too bad. But anyway, it's a great video and a lovely discussion. Maybe we can continue it at some point. And nice to see all you people here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hans. Much appreciated.
Sure. Well, it's always a pleasure to get together with you, Alex.
It's great to meet all these great people too, and it's fantastic to see Joe. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you attending, and I look forward to, please, there's a series of links that came off my presentation that Vance has got back on the wiki. Go and chase them around, have a look. There's some interesting perspectives from people on where we're heading.
Yeah, I think all the people here know where the wiki is. The missions for Minecraft. Missions for MCEVO, I think. Anyway, you'll know what it is. You can go to the community, you can click on it. So, thanks very much, everybody, for coming. It's a great discussion, and it's always great to talk to Alex. He's so wide-ranging. Whatever we're into next, he'll come and join us and bring his perspectives. So,
thanks.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll just say today is the 4th of February, and this is Learning Together episode 382. So,
wow,
done quite a lot of them. I don't do them every week anymore, but every now and then when something special comes along. And we're also the most of this, well, all of us now. Alex has joined us in the community, so we're all participants at the EVO. That's Electronic Village Online, a TESOL sponsored umbrella organization for educators to get together and put on 5-week sessions every year for the last 15 years, I think, since 2001. So anyway, this is what we do. Communities come together and we all talk to each other and learn from each other. So Minecraft MOOC is a part of that. And teaching and learning online was one from one of the first communities that I interacted with some time ago. I guess that's where I've met Alex, probably. So,
yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. And unless anybody has any last minute things to say, I'll be stopping the broadcast within a minute or so. So good night.
Yeah, a good night. See you, folks.
Okay, bye-bye.